Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in to watch the next video in our Covid-19 Conversations with Acumentis series. Today we'll be discussing property assets within self-managed super funds, and I'm joined by Acumentis National Director of Commercial, Paul Robbins. Paul, to start, can you provide us with some context around the key compliance considerations for trustees when it comes to valuing property within their super funds?
Thanks, Amy. As most trustees know, the valuation of asset is required to confirm that the fund is compliant with the relevant super law. Probably the two most important considerations for a trustee is to ensure that they've adopted the appropriate valuation approach and the timing of that assessment each year. The trustee must ensure that those assets are valued at 30 June, and that's a very important date to remember, and the trustee needs to have a clear understanding of what market value is defined in the ATO documentation. It's also interesting to note that the ATO recommend that the trustee may involve the services of an independent qualified valuer in a number of instances. The first instance is the asset value of that property represents a significant portion of the fund's value overall. And secondly, it's if the nature of the property being valued suggests that it would need a complex or difficult valuation methodology to achieve the appropriate value. So that's also something that the trustee should consider when they're assessing market value each year.
And what are some of the common hurdles that self-managed super fund trustees encounter when getting their real estate assets valued?
Yeah, look, that's a good question. From our experience, it's probably the access to relevant supporting data to assist in the comparison of the fund's asset with the market that is the most time-consuming and often difficult task for a trustee.
Yeah.
And it's important to realise that because if an auditor deems that the fund is not compliant due to a lack of methodology or a lack of appropriate data, they'll ask the trustee to go back and get that work done again, and that obviously a time-consuming point for the trustee. Now, the common hurdles, I guess, therefore, are cost and timing. So at Acumentis, we're working on a product that will allow the trustee to be able to fulfil their needs in both a timely and cost-effective way.
Thanks, Paul. And when should trustees be considering a revaluation of self-managed super fund owned property? I suppose especially given the current volatility in the market due to coronavirus.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. Obviously, as I said earlier, each year, 30 June is an important date and the assets need to be valued as at that date. The ATO has provided some guidance on their website in relation to when a trustee should consider to do an external valuation, and they indicate those events are what they deem significant events. Now, an example of that might be a macroeconomic event, some market volatility, or even a natural disaster. And at Acumentis, we believe that COVID-19 could be considered a significant event, and we'd recommend that trustees actually have a really good look at their assets this year to determine whether it might be appropriate for them to seek some external advice.
Now, you did mention 30 June each year. Is it a requirement that it's done yearly, or is it a sort of a multi-year process, the revaluation?
No, it is a requirement that the trustee value the assets at 30 June each year. The requirement to go externally, obviously, is at the trustee's discretion, but as long as they have the data themselves to be able to do that on an annual basis, no, that's fine.
Right. And what impact has the coronavirus pandemic had on commercial property values, and how are they likely to be affected in the future?
Yeah, look, I guess at the moment it's best described as being a pause in activity. Obviously, transactional volumes are markedly down, so to be able to get a gauge on exactly what's happening is quite difficult at the moment. Of course, the pause or the length of the pause will ultimately determine the degree of the impact that we'll see on the markets. Discussions with industry representatives at the moment, I guess I can say that tenant inquiry and demand is low, and it's obviously anticipated to be subdued for some time. And that at the moment, it would have a direct impact on values if you had vacancies in your property, because you might have to allow a longer period to find a new tenant, or the incentives and inducements offered to that tenant might have to be higher than you would have otherwise anticipated. So there's certainly things that need to be considered. In terms of what's the impact on yield spreads. It's really too early in the market to determine that. We haven't got enough information or trends to make a definitive call. But what we can say is, ultimately the impact of the coronavirus will be different across different market sectors. So and also even inside market sectors, different assets, different individual properties themselves. So you need to be really conscious of that when you're thinking about market value.
Yeah, okay. Best to get the experts on board, Ben, that sounds like, with that one. And with trustees under constant pressure to fulfil these ATO regulations in managing their self-managed super funds, how is the property valuation space as a whole helping trustees fulfil these obligations?
Well, Amy, Acumentis has been doing valuations for self-managed super funds for a very long time, particularly in regards to the complex and difficult valuation requests that we get from trustees. So that's something that's part and parcel of a day at Acumentis. But what we have understood through our research recently is that the trustees are looking for a product that helps them to comply with the requirements of the super laws, but in a more timely and cost-effective way, and that's what we're delivering now.
Okay. So can you tell me a little bit more about that product? Is there a sort of a fixed price for that, and how would someone go about ordering that?
Yeah, look, just before we talk about the pricing, the product itself would be available for someone if they owned a house inside a self-managed super fund or a commercial property, or even agricultural or rural property. So, we're not limiting this service to one particular asset class. In terms of costing, it starts at $500. However, depending upon the complexity of the task at hand, that might be on a per quote basis. But we're going to have a lot of information on the website to assist everybody in understanding exactly how they can get one of these assessments done.
Fantastic. And you mentioned that they'd be completed in a timely manner, so that's something that would have a set turnaround time frame?
That's right. The product itself has been designed to be able to be turned around in a couple of days. So, that's what we're working towards in relation to, engagements with our clients.
Fantastic. Well, Paul, thanks for sharing your insights and providing an update on how the new Acumentis self-managed super fund assessment will assist trustees, and particularly during this time of change that you pointed out. So just reinforcing to everyone that the team at Acumentis are here to support your property needs and can be reached on 1300 882 431. Thanks again for watching, and keep a lookout for the next conversation coming soon. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Amy.